as the full schedule is announced. Every rivalry, every rematch, every rookie debut, every game revealed. The 2024 NFL schedule release, presented by Verizon, coming in May. Live on NFL Network, ESPN2, and streaming on NFL Plus. Terms and conditions apply to NFL Plus. Visit NFL.com/schedule release to learn more.
Entrepreneur, businessman, and TV fan. People always come to me for investment advice. So here's a quick tip for you. Stop overpaying for cable and switch to Philo. What's Philo? It's the best way to watch more than 70 of your favorite channels and save big on your monthly bills. You can stream top channels like AMC, A&E, Discovery, Live, and On Demand. Philo's also got a library with thousands of hours of movies and shows just waiting for you. Plus, an unlimited DVR that lets you save all your favorites and rewatch them for up to 1 year. All of this for just $25 a month. You don't need me to tell you that this is a deal you need to make. Philo, now and forever.
Head on over to Philo.tv. That's PHILO.tv. And start your 7-day free trial now.
You deserve the best. With the SiriusXM Platinum VIP plan, you can unlock the ultimate listening experience in up to 2 cars and stream anywhere with 2 app logins. Enjoy our greatest content, opportunities for live VIP experiences, and prioritized customer care. Plus, get access to over 5,000 audio and video concert recordings through Nugs.net. Call 844-711-8800 and become a VIP. Offer details apply. Not available in Canada. For when you need support and hope. Bringing NYU Langone Health's leading psychologists and psychiatrists to you. Mental Health Radio can help you navigate difficulties like anxiety, depression, substance abuse, and more.
We're facing a crisis right now. We want to be here to help you.
Mental Health Radio, your 24/7 resource for advice and support. Just search Mental Health on the SiriusXM app.
There you go now.
I think I'm recording.
Oh, that's nice. Okay.
If you've been thinking about buying a home, you need to be in the zone, the home buying zone. You need a game plan to win in this great real estate market. The Big C team at Equity Zone Mortgage has all your bases covered. Whether you're a first-time home buyer, purchasing your dream home, refinancing, consolidating debt, or even considering a reverse mortgage, contact the Big C team at Equity Zone Mortgage today. They have the lowest closing costs and they'll close your loan on time, guaranteed, or they'll pay your first mortgage payment. And they even have a 3.5% purchase down payment grant that can get you into a home with little money out of your pocket. It doesn't get more clutch than that, folks. Score big on the biggest purchase of your life. Call Equity Zone Mortgage today at 1-800-772-8624. That's 1-800-772-8624. Or apply online at equityzonemortgage.com and tell them Big C sent you as heard on the Big C Sports Podcast. License number 018-14866.
Rondo Deportes, bonjour, vidi vidi vici. Let's get ready to rumble. Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton of Big C Sports. This is Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, and the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to me, and people who love the universe. And that would include you. What a beautiful day in the neighborhood. It is May 6th, 2024. Today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. When you go by and test drive yours, tell them sit ya where the good Lord split ya. If that makes sense to you, and hopefully he didn't split you too wide. I want to say you can follow Big C Sports Podcast on 29 podcast applications all over the universe, and streaming on 4 TV platforms: Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, and Amazon Fire TV. And I really do appreciate that. But what I want to say more than that, not only that, may lightning strike. I love saying may lightning strike. Hopefully it won't strike us too hard. But I do want to say there's a lot of good things happening in the world of sports and also reparations. I know so many people that are so focused on doing both, like using the left side of your brain and the right side of your brain and I love doing that, if that makes sense to you. As I say, today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. When you go by and test drive yours, tell them sent you with a good little split you, but also tell them, how about reparations now? Reparations forever. What a great Kentucky Derby, the 150th running of the Kentucky Derby. All's fair in love and war. Lieutenant Dan. I like the name Lieutenant Dan. I like, that was in the movie Forrest Gump. Lieutenant Dan's horse won. Lieutenant Dan's horse won. May lightning strike. Lieutenant Dan's horse won. I love saying Lieutenant Dan's horse won because that was a great movie for me, Pulp Fiction. Not Pulp Fiction, it was Forrest Gump. It was like Pulp Fiction, they had the same strike. You can follow Big C Sports Podcast, and as I say, I always produce the show. Just like Lieutenant Dan. I produce the show, I direct the topics, I broadcast all the shows, I do all the sound effects based on the platform provided by the agency. We could all use more laughter, and I know I can use more laughter. And then the commercials are done, the stats provided, and the storyteller's done. I even do the play-by-play. Jamal Murray for 3, yes, in the hole in your life. I can't believe that the Denver Nuggets got knocked out in game 1. There's only one game, but they got game 2 coming up tonight against the Minnesota Timberwolves. I would have thought that Denver would have had those good boys right in the side of their eyes, but at the same time, Minnesota's a good team too, and they're gonna do what they can to get their groove back. Also, you got the Cleveland Cavaliers. Cleveland, this is for you. The Cleveland Cavaliers, they actually found a way to knock out the Orlando Magic, and now those good boys are moving on to the next round. Indiana's getting in the next round, so we have Boston, we have New York Knicks, we have Indiana, and also Cleveland. I'm looking forward to seeing, and somehow, some way, it's either going to be Boston or New York coming out of the Eastern Conference, in my opinion. In the Western Conference, we have the Dallas Mavericks. They will be taking on the Oklahoma City Thunder. Say, Alexander for 3, yes, in your life, get the hole. They call him SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and also Luka Doncic and the great Kyrie Irving. That will be a series. I can't wait to see that series. But Minnesota and Denver, those good boys, the Big Cat and the Joker, you can't wait. I can't wait to see that. That's going to be a must-see basketball in your life. Get the hole, yes! This is a great time of year. Hockey's kind of taking a back seat, but nothing wrong with being in the back seat as long as you got some gas money. Don't just get free rides. I want to say the show's uploaded to 29 podcast applications all over the universe and streaming on 4 TV platforms. Number 10, I never missed a show. Through joy, pain, sunshine, and rain, I never missed a show with the Big C Sports Podcast. You got to give that some praise. I heard a song today called "This Is a Man's World," hey! But it would be nothing without a woman or a girl, hey! And then Pavarotti was doing his thing. It was James Brown and Luciano Pavarotti. If you can ever Google it, it's one of the great performances I've ever heard. I think they did it in Rome about 2 decades ago. Just Google it. It's a man's world, James Brown and Luciano Pavarotti. When you want to talk about May Thunder and Lightning mix, it was just great for your ears. It was great for the ears, just like for me. Reparations now, reparations forever. It's great for the ears. If I could only get some of our sports leagues to just follow. I'm telling you, I love it so much what I'm doing with Big C Sports Podcast. I want to do something also that I always enjoy doing, part of the Veterans Crisis Hotline. It's a PSA, and our veterans, they need our help. Not just saying we thank you for your service, but they need help too, because they go through a lot of the stuff and the crap that's made us a free country, in the land of the free, in the home of the brave. And oftentimes when they have problems, they don't have anyone to lean on. But 800-273-8255, that's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255, that's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net. And when you do, you can find someone to lean on. And when you do, you give us some praise, because we all need somebody to lean on. And I love giving out that PSA every show with Big C Sports Podcast. I love doing that. It's so important to me. My show is always a little bit different. It's never the same. Just like the bowl of collard greens, it's never the same. Just don't put too much salt in the collard greens. Sometimes restaurants put too much salt in the collard greens. But as I tell you, I'm doing some things with Big C Sports Podcast that I love doing. I love championing reparations, because a mind is a terrible thing to waste. And as I do the reparations chant, it is a chant. I love paying homage to those who make life, better. But before I even do that, I'm going to say, for those who say that reparations is divisive, yet they go to a ball game and play money top dollar for a touchdown, home run, 3-point play, old man Willie, he's going all the way. And oftentimes, those teams will up and leave when somebody offers more money. They'll up and leave when someone offers more money. But when we talk about reparations, people say, oh, Big C, we don't want to talk about that. Well, there's some smart people that are. Either lead, follow, or get out of the way. There's some very bright minds that are behind the push for reparations. I know you want to know who won the game. But when I tell you and let you hear some things that I'm finding, because I'm changing, as I know better, I do better. And when I learn how people can listen to people who have very good knowledge on a subject, it's nice when you let them hear from the person themselves. And that's what I love doing with Big C Sports Podcast. It can't just be me, because people may say, oh, Big C, you just talking up the back of your midnight strike. Like Lieutenant Dan won the Kentucky Derby. Lieutenant Dan! I'll get into it also. But I gotta say, I love saying, when people say, Big C, why do you say Lieutenant Dan won the Kentucky Derby? Well, because when I tell you, I love the movie Forrest Gump. And they had Lieutenant Dan who had lost his legs. I'm not laughing that he lost his legs. He lost his legs for a good cause. If you can lose your legs for a good cause, he was in the war. Well, when I give out the reparations information, and also the Veterans Crisis Hotline, a lot of people lost their legs. They lost their limbs trying to serve this country. They were trying to serve this country. That same country, and a lot of those men on the vanguard were black men. From the Civil War that helped the Union defeat the Confederate Army. From World War I, World War II, Korean War, Vietnam. A lot of those soldiers on the front line, they were black men. In the land of the free, in the home of the brave. And some of those black men, not just some, many have suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder. And when I give up the Veterans Crisis Hotline, I'm not just doing it for the sake of doing it. But at the same time, when we stand up for our veterans, and people say, oh, we don't need no reparations. A lot of our veterans were black that were on the front line, and they did not get the GI Bill. That only went to white men. That went to white soldiers. Well, why would that happen, Big C? Because that's what the country did. Oh, I don't believe that. Google it, who got the GI Bill. That was only for white soldiers. They wouldn't give it to black men. Well, that's not fair. Life is not always fair. But what you can do is atone for it. When you hear today's show, you can't say, unless you're the dumbest person in the universe, you can't say that you don't understand why reparations are necessary. Black men and women did not get the Homestead Act in 1862 to 1865. Actually, they were still giving out land up until like 1870. But you have to be white, even European white. Well, that's not fair, Big C. Why is that? Well, you got to ask Congress. That same Congress that's shucking and jiving over reparations. They put the pen to the paper. What they put, Big C, on the paper? I said they put the pen to the paper. And that's how laws get done. You got to put pen to paper. I know we're emotional. People want to argue and give their opinion. But nothing happens until you put pen to paper. From the birth certificate to our death certificate. It's the pen to the paper. The Constitution, the United States, every amendment, they put the pen to the paper. We got to do the same thing for reparations. I'm going to also put the pen to the paper. I'm doing a commercial, and I do my commercials live. I don't go into a studio and do 29 takes. I only get one shot. Like in the movie Lieutenant Dan, Dumb and Dumber, I think Ice Cube in the movie Dumb and Dumber, he said, you only get one shot. That wasn't Ice Cube and Dumb and Dumber, that was Eminem, Big C. Okay, but they still said the same thing. I only get one take on the Big C Sports Podcast. If I make a mistake, you hear my mistake. And if I don't make a mistake, you don't hear my mistake. So I'm going to do my best. Ready, set, go. A guide to protect, preserve, and transfer wealth. Resource Development Consulting, Incorporated, in conjunction with the law offices of Scott Thibodeau and the law office of George Jones. The Missing Link, Long-Term Care Solutions by the Book. Over 3 decades of experience helping seniors get their benefits, Medicare and You, taking care of tomorrow. In California, it's called Medi-Cal, if that makes sense to you. I want to say your family and spouse can avoid the spend down for nursing home costs. Find out your options. Our promise to you, we specialize to navigate and maximize long-term care benefits, protection of your assets without the spend down. Is that Aflac? No, Aflac's the duck. That's Gap Insurance. We have protection of your assets without the spend down. All paperwork and communication with all government agencies are handled by our staff of entitlement specialists, ongoing consulting to provide updates as necessary, benefits covering skilled nursing facilities, prescriptions, medical equipment costs, and more. Do you know anyone that's ever dealt with skilled nursing facilities? Do you know anyone who's ever dealt with prescription medication? Do you know anyone who's ever dealt with medical equipment costs and more? Protection of your assets, including your home, thereby allowing you to leave a legacy for your family. Avoiding the nightmare of debt brought by the government's estate recovery program called probate. They love when you don't have your asset protected. They love when you walk in there without your asset protected. You have to protect your assets. And a one-time processing fee versus monthly insurance premiums for the rest of your life. Not only that, asset protection. As I said, in conjunction with the law office of Scott Thibodeau and the law office of George Jones, and this is important, why the RDC team, 800-772-8624, 800-772-8624. Protection. We all need protection. Insurance coverage required by law, general liability, workers' compensation, lawyers specializing in living trust, Medicaid or Medi-Cal planning for long-term care. Avoid probate. Life insurance, veterans benefits, aid and attendance, pre-planning, and avoid the look-back period. Fixed assets, bank account, checking account, savings account, money market account, certificates of deposit, life insurance with cash values, fixed index annuities. Variable assets, Big Z, what about those? I didn't forget that part. Real estate, qualified money, IRA, 401k, and other investments. You can avoid capital gains. Over 3 decades of experience. Attention business owners. Find out your other options to protect what your insurance does not cover. How do we do that, Big Z? 800-772-8624. 800-772-8624. And when you do, just tell them Big C sent you and give that some praise. I say give it praise, praise, praise. That's what I love doing with the Big C Sports Podcast. Well, Big C, that's a lot of information to give. But who endorses you? Why would we trust you, Big C? Well, I'm glad you asked. Because if you don't ask, what do they say? What did Bill Clinton say? He said, don't ask, don't tell. I believe you can ask and you can tell. And who endorses the RDC team? We have the endorsement of Attorney Scott Thibodeau and the endorsement of Attorney George Jones, the chairman of the California Black Chamber of Commerce. And not only that, California Black Chamber of Commerce Foundation. We have Mr. Leon Woods, resource development consultant, works with many of the top lobbyists in California. We have Miss Cheryl Brown. She's the chair of the California Commission on Aging. We have Mr. Ray De La Cruz, the CEO of Resource Development Consulting. If that makes sense to you, been doing this thing for over 3 decades. And he has the endorsement of the late top legal mind of CalPERS, the late Robert Carlson, if that makes sense to you. And then we have Mr. Alex De La Cruz, founder of American Veterans Benefits. And not only that, we have Charlton Curry, National Black Wall Street Project co-chair. And not only that, we have Double O, PAC Committee for the National Black Wall Street Project, has our own economics awareness talk show called Let's Eat. Give that some praise. I said give it praise, 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 because the mind is a terrible thing to waste. And that's what I love doing in the Big C Sports. Well, that sounds like good endorsement, Big C. That's why I say call 800-772-8624, 800-772-8624. But before I get into something, before I get into some basketball and some hockey, and also some talk about the horse that won the Kentucky Derby. I love Kentucky Derbies. All spread level work. I want to pay homage to the California Reparations Task Force because the mind is a terrible thing to waste. And some people, they don't mind wasting their mind, and they don't mind wasting your time. But I'm not one of them. If that makes sense to you, I want to give praise. So you know, and you can Google every name. I met every single one of them. The chair, Attorney Camila Moore, she's brilliant. I love giving her praise. Dr. Amos C. Brown, the vice chair, he's brilliant. I love giving him praise. He's actually been on the Big C Sports Podcast. I want to give praise to California Senator Stephen Bradford. He's brilliant. I love giving him praise. I want to give praise to Congress Council Member Monica Montgomery Steppe. She's brilliant. I love giving her praise. I want to give praise to Assembly Member Reginald Jones Sawyer. He's brilliant. I love giving him praise. You got to understand, these people have done a good job in putting pen to paper. Pen to paper, and now it's up to the vote for the legislature. I want to give praise to Dr. Shell Grill. She's brilliant. I love giving her praise. I want to give praise to our attorney, Lisa Holder. She's an expert when it comes to equity and inclusion and diversity in a lot of college programs. For some reason, governors are trying to get rid of that. They don't want diversity, but I do, and a lot of people do. I'm going to give praise to her. I'm going to give praise to Dr. Javon Scott Lewis, professor at California Berkeley. I love giving him praise. I'm going to give praise to Attorney Donald K. Tamaki, part of the California Reparations Task Force. He's brilliant. I love giving him praise, and you can too. Give him praise, 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 because we all need somebody to lean on. I want to tell you, when it comes to reparations, we have Governor Gavin Newsom in California who signed the mandate to study reparations. But not only him, there's also governors from sea to sun and sea that have talked about it. I'm going to let you hear from some great minds outside of me screaming at you, and you can give it your thoughts as you listen, and listen with all your heart, mind, body, and soul.
From the 57th governor of the great state of New York, Governor Kathy Hochul.
So my name is Zoe, and
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you very much. In a few minutes, I'll sign a bill authorizing the creation of a community commission to study the history of slavery in New York State. We'll study various forms of reparations and how we can help right the wrongs of the past. And I want to acknowledge some incredible leaders who helped bring us to this date, and I want to thank my partner in government, our Lieutenant Governor Antonio Delgado. Thank you, Antonio. Majority Leader Andre Stewart Cousins, thank you for your leadership in the Senate. Speaker Carl Heastie, getting this through the Assembly. And our sponsors, Senator James Sanders and Representative Mikhail Slazes. Thank you. Louis Samir, I want to thank you for welcoming us to this majestic place that reminds us that this is a state and a nation steeped in incredible history, some of it positive and some not. And I want to thank Dr. Williams also, who's going to give us a perspective of how this issue has been addressed in other states. My Empire State Development Commissioner and CEO, Hope Knight, has joined us, Public Advocate Jamani Williams, and all of our elected officials in state and local government. I'm grateful for your presence here today, and Reverend Al Sharpton is on his way. Before I speak about this bill, though, I want to share with you about how we got here. And I'll share my own personal journey, my story of how I arrived at this point. But first, I want to talk about our shared journey as Americans and New Yorkers. More than 400 years ago, the first slaves were violently kidnapped, stolen from their families and their homes. They were brought in chains to the shores of what eventually becomes the United States of America. And these enslaved peoples literally built much of our nation with their sweat, their blood, their sorrow. Right over here, we have a statue of Thomas Jefferson. He wrote the Declaration of Independence. At the same time, he owned over 600 slaves. Now, in New York, we like to think we're on the right side of this. Now, slavery was a product of the South, the Confederacy. We're proud of the legacy of incredible warriors for justice and liberation, and the thousands of New York soldiers who went to fight these battles on the right side of history in the Civil War. We're proud to be home of courageous leaders like Harriet Tubman, conductor of the Underground Railroad, buried up in Auburn, New York, to Joyner Truth, Frederick Douglass, and abolitionists like John Brown, whose farm is way in the North Country. We're proud to embrace the deliverance from slavery from the Underground Railroad itself, which ran from New York all the way to Canada, crossing over Niagara Falls, where I was yesterday. And that had the strong support of many much goodwill from residents of this state. So it's easy for us to pat ourselves on the back, right? We did all this. A lot of other states didn't step up. We had the leaders here. We took this on. We can say we're the heroes. We're the ones who fought against slavery. And indeed, many did. What is hard to embrace is the fact that our state also flourished from that slavery. It's not a beautiful story, but indeed it is the truth. In 1847, Frederick Douglass, and I just left his exhibit moments ago, you should go visit this, you see his journey. He spoke at Market Hall in New York City, and he declared that he would hold America up to the lightning scorn of moral indignation over slavery. He called this the duty of a true patriot, because someone who really loves their country will rebuke it and not excuse its sins. Today I challenge all New Yorkers to be the patriots and rebuke and not excuse our role in benefiting from the institution of slavery. According to the New York Historical Society, where we are today, as many as 20% of colonial New Yorkers, 20% of us, were enslaved Africans. A fifth of our entire population was in bondage. Beginning in 1630, some 15,000 people died and were buried in the African burial ground just feet from City Hall, or from Broadway and the Stock Exchange. Think about that. It's not talked about a lot. That's a problem. New York has long been the center of American commerce, Wall Street, banking, shipping, insurance, the economic engines of our entire country. And they thrived because they can trade in commodities that were produced by slaves. And there was a slave market. Yes, here in New York, there was a slave market where people bought and sold other human beings with callous disregard. It happened right on Wall Street for more than a century. And even though it officially closed when slavery was abolished in New York in 1827, our state still remained a dominant player in the illegal slave trade. The practice continued, and our financial and business institutions prospered. Even when the Confederacy surrendered at Appomattox in 1865, the end of that terrible, bloody conflict, it didn't mark the end of slavery's terrible wounds. Didn't end then. But we wouldn't be having a conversation today. Former slaves and their children and their children's children across our nation have been haunted for generations by racism and disenfranchisement. Millions of people, even though free on a piece of paper, were still trapped by Jim Crow, stripped of their rights, even including the right to participate in our democracy, the right to vote. And others were stalked by death by men in white robes, the Klan and the lynch mob. Didn't stop in the early days. Redlining, housing discrimination, segregation, economic oppression, all were designed to keep black and brown Americans from reaching that first rung on that ladder of success, the ladder of opportunity. And many were kicked down when they finally got there. It's an ugly truth, but as patriots, as Frederick Douglass said, we must bear witness to it. You know, in New York, it's no different. Some of you may know the story. In 1892, Port Jervis was a quaint little hamlet, about 9,000 people, just a few hours by train from here. People traveled up there to get fresh air and fish for trout. It was idyllic. It was mostly white. And on one June morning, a gentleman named Robert Lewis, a black man who drove a carriage for a hotel, was dragged down the street by an angry mob. He was beaten and hung from a tree after being accused of attacking a white woman, although it was actually her boyfriend who had been involved. Let me repeat this. This happened not in the Deep South, not in Tulsa. It happened right here in New York. So this is an American story, it's a New York story, and we all share in it. And even after the long, hard road of the Civil Rights Movement, it wasn't until 2009 that Congress even apologized for the institution of slavery. Now, if someone had kidnapped, beaten, enslaved, or murdered a member of my family, I think I would have wanted an apology at bare minimum. Let me say this. I know the word reparations brings up a lot of conflicting ideas for people. A lot of people instinctively dig in when they hear it without really thinking about what it means or why we need to talk about it. I'm the daughter of social justice Catholics. My parents, not politically active, but very socially active. They taught their 6 children about Dr. Martin Luther King when we were very young and his message of nonviolence and the fight for equality. Parents themselves were involved in the civil rights movement, and they tried to integrate our blue-collar community where most people worked at the steel plant, hard work by day, through the night. This blue-collar community back in the 1960s, my parents were trying to be part of a program to integrate, allow black families a chance to escape the city and move out. It was a conservative town. Didn't go well. My parents ended up comforting one family who had a cross burned on their lawn in the town I grew up in. They came to our house. As a little kid, I remember a lot of tears. But despite the criticism my parents received at that time, they knew it was the right thing to do. Those are the values I was taught. Just do what's right. When I attended Syracuse University, I met students from all over the world. Every race, every ethnic group, every religion. People had very little in common with my background growing up in that town. I became a student activist, fighting to stop our university from investing in companies doing business in South Africa because it propped up apartheid, a system where the black majority were ruled by the white minority. Black and white students banded together, and I'm proud that we convinced the university to do what was right, and they did. It's essential that we try. Witnessing my parents' work, their values, that powerful sense of empathy, all that made me who I am. And I see that on display in our communities all over. People from around every part of the world coexist. And all of us embrace uniqueness, which comes from being called a New Yorker. We never forget we have a proud history in our harbor, the Statue of Liberty. So many impoverished immigrants sailed past it seeking a better life, including my own grandparents. And as we practice acceptance and welcome others, I think about what Dr. King said. Great line. We all came in different ships, but we're all in the same boat now. Isn't that the truth? Now, my grandparents were able to escape great poverty and sail here on the upper decks to pursue their dreams. They had nothing, but they were in the upper decks. They can get some fresh air. The slaves were forced to come, chained in the belly of the ships, and they weren't welcomed with the opportunity for hard work and a paycheck. They just did the hard work. They didn't get a union card like Grandpa did that lifted us into better circumstances. He could work with his hands, work hard. They didn't get the union card and a paycheck. They got shackles and a lash. And while New York does have an incredible legacy as a cradle of freedom, if we brought all those who were on this journey, the early abolitionists and the people who fought and Civil Rights Act, whether they were black or white, we all brought them to today in 2023, almost 2024, what would they see today? Black and brown Americans in segregated cities, sometimes choked with dirty air. Black Americans still oppressed by elevated rates of poverty, death, disease, illness, suffering the highest rates of infant, child, and maternal mortality. They would see descendants of slaves still lagging behind white families in attaining generational wealth, home ownership, and higher education. They would come from the past and see today and say, your work is not done. And yet, we take comfort in Dr. King's words again. The arc of the moral universe is long, but it does bend toward justice. I believe it is our obligation to help that arc bend toward justice. This bill is a continuation of the work that began when New York began slavery back in 1827. We've had a lot of steps along the way, some backwards, some forwards, many profound failures. But by signing this bill today, I'm authorizing the creation of a commission, a committee to study what reparations might look like in New York. And let's be clear about what reparations means. It doesn't mean fixing the past, undoing what happened. We can't do that. No one can. But it does mean more than giving people a simple apology 150 years later. This bill makes it possible to have a conversation, a reasoned debate about what we want the future to look like. And I can think of nothing more democratic than that. And to those who think that even having this conversation is unfair or wrong, I say it would be wrong not to have it.
And you hear New York City Governor Kathy Hochul, as she spoke about reparations and forming a commission in New York State. And we have the NBA New York Knicks, and they're playing in playoff basketball, and they say nothing about reparations. And the state where their governor talks about reparations. We have sports shows, entertainers. They can't wait to get to Madison Square Garden so they can watch the New York Knicks play. And they don't even talk about reparations. Most of these men are black. And people may say, oh, Big C, these guys are already rich. Yeah, but the Kathy Hawk is rich also. So why does a white woman have the courage to talk about doing the right thing, and some of our own black brethren, they won't say anything? You would think they would be there. If they're afraid, at least don't be afraid to support her. So who is it in the NBA that's saying, don't you dare talk about what the governor's talking about? What an indictment against white America if decent white people feel that talking about liberty and justice for all is anathema. What an indictment to a group of people if white media feels that talking about doing the right thing is going to cost them votes among white people. If that's the case, doesn't that tell you that racism still exists? If you tell me that you're going to lose votes because you say, stop hurting people, is that going to really cost you votes? If you say, stop discriminating against people, is that really going to cost you votes? If you say, give people what you stole from them, is that really going to cost you votes? Everyone that has an insurance policy, if you get your car broken into, if you get your home broken into, if you get merchandising taken from you, if you own a store and they take your merchandise out of there, you're going to call the insurance company and law enforcement to get the repair. Why would that be okay if descendants of child of slavery do the same thing and you say, I'll not tolerate it? Doing the right thing is always time to do the right thing. Here's Dr. King.
At the very same time that America refused to give the Negro any land, through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, they built land-grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. Not only that, they provided county agents to further their expertise in farming. Not only that, they provided low interest rates in order that they could mechanize their farms. Not only that, today, many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And this is what we are faced with. And this is the reality. Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
They like to strike. Now, you just heard New York Governor Kathy Hochul talk about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And then you hear the words of Dr. Martin Luther King also. What's wrong with doing the right thing? Nothing's wrong with doing the right thing. We should do reparations now.
Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. talking about how basically whites stole the West from the Indians with the complete, and didn't just steal it. I mean, murdered them he murdered the Indians in the process, and did not give any of these benefits to African Americans for 100 years in this country. You know, it's a strong case for reparations or some variation on it, for rebuilding our cities, for doing right after having done wrong for so many centuries. It is a very, very strong case for that.
In your life! I love talking about reparations because it's time to do the right thing. So as I mentioned, reparations is important. Reparations now, reparations forever. Now I love bringing that up. You have the New York City Governor, Kathy Hochul, also the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Talk about something that's more important than what I'm going to get into now. I just hope that good people, not everybody, because not everybody's good, but for good people, you got to stand up with reparations because they're good people that are doing it. It's not just Big C Sports, even though I've been doing this work for 5 years now. Now you actually have governors from Gavin Newsom in California to Kathy Hochul in New York City that are talking about it, and that's what I love about it. Nobody can say that is not the right thing to do. Fair enough? Well, fair enough may like this right. And speaking of Mystic Dan won the 150th Kentucky Derby. Can you imagine that? The TV put more emphasis on a horse than reparations. Isn't that something? When a horse can get more coverage than reparations, something's wrong in our society. But I'll give it some praise because I also talked about reparations that we also talk about. Especially, I want to give thanks to the New York City Governor, Kathy Hochul. She's a white woman by the chance. And hopefully our black NBA basketball players, if you don't have the balls to stand up for yourself, at least stand up for what a white lady's trying to do for our ancestry and our generation and future generation. That's my story. I'm sticking with it. My goodness, Mystic Dan wins the 150th Kentucky Derby by a nose in the closest three-horse photo finish since 1947. A horse got more emphasis than talking reparations. But that's all fair and love and war. Louisville, Kentucky, the 150th Kentucky Derby produced one of the most dramatic finishes in its historic history of three noses at the wire. Mystic Dan may lightning strike. Mystic Dan put his nose out further than the two challengers coming on him in the closing strides. He did it too after a delay of several minutes while the closest three-horse photo since 1947 was sorted out. Isn't that something? When you think about 1947, that's about the time that the descendants of Holocaust got their reparations with the United Nations and the United States government. You can Google it. Justice for Today Act is United States America government along with the United Nations making sure that the descendants of Holocaust get their reparations. And now we're still talking about study. What's the study? Just give me the same recipe. Sometimes you go into a restaurant and you want to order something that's good, and you say, what do you have on the menu? And somebody said, oh my God, this is so good. And oftentimes you say, I'll just take what they have. And that's what reparations is to me. That's my story that I'm sticking with it. And you can give that some praise. I want to also say for the NBA playoffs, the power rankings, this is Big C. I told you my show is different. You can't say. In fact, you can say. But it's not for everybody. It's for smart people. It's for smart people who want to do the right thing. Playoff power rankings, where all 8 teams stand as conference semifinals begin. The first round is complete, and 8 teams have moved on and how they're looking for the next round. I'm going to tell you, there was a lot of thought that the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Minnesota Timberwolves, because of their youth and lack of playoff success, were the most vulnerable high seed in the 2024 playoffs. But I just hope the NBA, the headquarters for the NBA is in the same state as Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York. That's New York City. Why is a white woman willing to do the right thing that Dr. King talked about? The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. Why is a white lady willing to do the right thing and the NBA's not? The NBA Players Union controls 53% of the league, black men. And they won't say nothing about reparations, where their ancestry come from, their great-grandparents, their great-great-grandparents, and many of them, their great-great-great-grandparents were slaves. And you have a white woman willing to champion reparations, and these black men just want to run up and down the court playing with balls. It's embarrassing to me, actually. Really is. If you can't stand up for yourself and the ancestry, and you white guys too. Adam Silver, how dare you not champion reparations? We talk about MLK holiday, MLK games, but we say nothing about what the governor of New York City is talking about. The governor of the state of New York, Kathy Hochul. Instead, we talk about the only teams to sweep their first round series and how the Timberwolves are now a game up on the defending NBA champion Denver Nuggets. It's a new day in the NBA and the first postseason since 2005 in which the great Steph Curry for three, yes, in your life, get the hole. The great Kevin Durant, in your life, get the hole. Kevin Durant for three, yes. The great LeBron James for three, yes, in your life, get the hole. These great black men, they say nothing about reparations. It took a white woman to do it. You just heard her speak on the Big C Sports Podcast. Kathy Hochul, governor of New York. Why are we afraid? We're going to hide behind a white lady to defend our ancestry because we were robbed. It's amazing. Neither the Thunder nor the Timberwolves are number one as I rank them, but it's just my opinion. I think there's a lot of great teams in the NBA playoffs. I would just hope that they would have the courage to stand behind the smart people in this country that championed Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He said, we're coming to get our check. Just like these politicians are going to come to get the black vote. They're going to ask, they have no shame in saying, we want your black vote. We want your black vote because we on your side and we going to lift every voice and sing. But you have New York City Governor Kathy Hochul, a white lady. How does she have her courage than our beautiful, big, intelligent black men? And who is it in the NBA that's saying, I'll not tolerate talking reparations? When a white lady does it out of New York City. It's not always about race, is it? It's about doing the right thing while we're still alive, while we still have breath. To correct things. I got number one, and still my pick, the Boston Celtics. I have them coming out of the East as the defending. I think they're going to be playing the Denver Nuggets, but just my opinion. Boston beat Miami in 5 games. Now they're playing Cleveland. Cleveland, this is not for you. But I look at the Celtics. They took care of business in the first round, eliminating Miami. And now I think, but they lost Kristaps Porzingis along the way, and he's expected to miss all the conference semifinals. So they're going to have to step up their game, and hopefully they'll champion reparations too. I got number 2 right now, and just my opinion. People can have their own opinion about who Big C's thoughts are in the NBA for the top team. I still want to say the defending NBA champion Denver Nuggets. They beat the LA Lakers 5-1, and they trailed Minnesota 1-0, and then the Nuggets earned a hole after losing game 1 of the conference semifinals. At home on Saturday, the great Jamal Murray for 3. Yes, in the hole in your life. He has to find a way to dig them out of the hole. He and the Joker, because if they go down 2-0 against Minnesota, then I think my prediction for Denver returning to the NBA Finals would be wrong. I'm telling you, they got to find a way. Jamal Murray is not at his best. He's dealing with a calf strain, and that has him questionable for tonight. So we will see what happens. He has to find a way to play through that pain. He averages about 23 points a game, and he has to get the Joker in action. They didn't score well last time against the Goda boys from Minnesota. But Minnesota, you let young people feel that they can hang with the older guys, and sometimes that confidence is all they need. And I hope they'll have the same confidence to champion reparations. I got number 3 in Big C's NBA playoff power rankings. I have the Minnesota Timberwolves. They beat the Phoenix Suns in 4 games, and they lead the defending NBA champion Denver Nuggets 1-0. It's more surprising that the Wolves are 5-0 with the win in Denver on Saturday is that they have the number 1 offense in the playoffs. The Wolves had the number 1 offense in the first round regarding both raw points at 100 possessions. And then when I think about it, they're so efficient, and they have a lot of young legs. Anthony Edwards, who averaged 33 points on true shooting percentage, shooting 66%. In your life, Anthony Edwards for 3. Yes, get the hole. They got to keep them out of the hole, if that makes sense to you. They're a tough team. I am going to say I got number 4 seed, the Oklahoma City Thunder. In your life, get the hole. The great Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. They beat the New Orleans Pelicans in 4 games. Now they play Luka Doncic and the great Kyrie Irving and the Dallas Mavericks. So much for inexperience. The Thunder took care of business in the first round, sweeping the Pelicans, but they shut them down defensively. The 93.5 points per 100 possessions at the Pelicans score is the first round, is the lowest mark of any team in the playoffs. This team can play. I still think they'll get had by the lack of experience. I know that's my story, and I'm sticking with it. The offense wasn't so great. The margins ranking low in free throws in 12th and turnovers 10th. But the defending the Mavs would be a lot tougher. I think the Thunder won 3 of the 4 regular season meetings, but Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving played together in only one of those. I think, in my opinion, that Dallas will find a way to get on top of that because a Maverick can avoid thunder and lightning, especially down there in Texas. So I'm gonna tell you though, it's taking an upset because I have Dallas and OKC tied right now for number 4 in Big C's power ranking. The Clippers, they got knocked out in 6 games by the Mavericks. And now Oklahoma City's next. The Mavs probably benefited from Kawhi Leonard's absence in 4 of 6 games in the first round, but they won 2 of those games he played in the conference semifinals for just the second time since they won the title in 2011 with the great Dirk Nowitzki. The great Luka Doncic did not shoot well in the first round, and the fact that they got done in 6 games, I think that spells a little bit of trouble for the OKC Thunder. I think it's going to shoot much better in this series. I got the city that has a brave governor, Kathy Hochul. May lightning strike. He's talking about reparations. Can we get Madison Square Garden and the New York Knicks to talk about reparations for descendants of child slavery, which a lot of the athletes came from? They beat Philadelphia in 6 games. Now they play Indiana. It's been 24 years since the New York Knicks reached the conference finals for the 2nd straight postseason. They'll be facing a bottom 4 seed coming off an upset of the Milwaukee Bucks. 3 takeaways, the Knicks' success versus the Phillies. I think Joel Embiid was hurt. The Sixers are one of only 2 teams, the Wolves and the other, that scored more efficiently in the first round than they did in the regular season. I think right now the NBA would love to see the New York Knicks get into the NBA Finals. At least they can stand behind their governor and say reparations now, reparations forever, and not be afraid. Come on, Knicks. Don't be afraid. The Knicks trailed by double digits in each of their playoff wins versus the Sixers. That included Game 6, which they led by 22 after scoring an amazing 33 points on the first 16 possessions. But if the New York Knickerbockers are not as bold as their governor, Kathy Hochul, in championing reparations now, reparations forever, then why care if they get through anyway? I got the Indiana Pacers. They are coming in. They beat Milwaukee in 6 games. They're playing the New York Knicks. The Pacers have won a playoff series for the first time since 2014. The year before that, they beat the 2nd seeded New York Knicks in the conference semifinals. In the regular season, the Pacers recorded the highest regular season assist turnover ratio at 2.38 in the 47 seasons for which turnovers have been tracked. They got to find a way to play better basketball. I think about the Pacers don't have the great Tyrese Maxey. In your life, get the hole! They don't have the great Tyrese Maxey and or the great Joel Embiid. But what they do have is belief that they can play against a New York Knicks team that comes from the same state as Governor Kathy Hochul, and they're afraid to champion reparations. So maybe they don't have the guts. And if you don't have the guts, then that gives Indiana a chance to come in there because they have guts, and that's why they're playing against the New York Knicks. But we will see what happens. And then I just got to say, if the New York Knicks can't stand behind a white lady who's championing reparations, and you got the New York Knicks full of black men, stars, big, strong, and fast. If you don't have the guts that she has to at least support what she's doing by talking to NBA Commissioner Adam Silver, who is a Jewish American, we should stand behind reparations. At least champion the people who champion reparations. Because the arc of moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And sometimes it's just us not talking about it. That's my story. I'm sticking with it. Cleveland, this is for you. They beat Orlando in 7 games, and now they play Boston. Cavaliers, not exactly impressive in their first round series against the Magic, but they eventually got the job done behind the great Donovan Mitchell. He outscored, think about this, the Cavs outscored by 31 points over the 7 games. That's the second worst differential for a winning team. it's not going to look good for them against the Boston Celtics. Because even in Boston, they're championing reparations now. Reparations forever. All we need is a few brave men and women to champion that. Black and white. That's my story, and I'm sticking with it. I love NBA basketball. And hockey's doing this thing too. Got some hockey going on, but it takes a backseat to NBA basketball. It just does. It just does, and people know that. But I hope at some point in time we can get good people from sea to shining sea to not just make it about Big C Sports in your life championing reparations. It's about good people all over the place. It has to be. It can't just be me. And when you have governors that talk about reparations, and Big C Sports talks about it all the time, there's a lot of people in California that are championing that. I hope that we can get the same thing done all over this country. That's my story. I believe that. If we can just do that, all it takes is lightning to strike some time to get people's attention. But I think when I love Big C Sports Podcast so much is because not only the work that we're doing with RDC to get people their long-term care entitlements was signed by Lyndon Johnson in 1965. President Lyndon Baines Johnson did that, and Dr. Martin Luther King was right there with him. And to hear Dr. Martin Luther King's name brought up so many times when it comes to reparations by great governors all over this country and the good people behind the cause, if we get as much passion into doing the right thing as we cheer for a touchdown, home run, three-point play, old man Willie, he's going all the way. Yes, 4-3, LeBron James, 4-3, Steph Curry, 4-3, yes, in your life, get the hole. You know, I love sports. I love it with a passion, and a lot of people do. But I'm also passionate about justice and liberty and justice for all. That's why I love bringing politics and sports together. People know that real is real. Let's deal with real people and do the right thing. You can't be against doing the right thing. If someone robbed your home or stole your car or your phone or you lost your wallet, you report it to law enforcement to try to have it repaired. You would call your insurance company and try to have them repair what you lost. Come on, this is for smart people now. This is a year of reckoning in 2024. It's time to do the right thing, and right thing is always the right thing. That's my story, and I'm sticking with it. As I always tell you, I love paying homage to my beautiful family legacy. On my beautiful mother's side, my great-grandparents, Mama and Pop, my grandparents, Mud Deer and Hezekiah. I can always depend on my mama, the most beautiful mama in the history of the universe. Done in the Head Start program, a food program, and also coaching all boys Little League baseball team to the championship of the universe. Always stand rise and shine, always doing the right thing. I love my mama with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. On my father's side, my grandfather, Albert Curry, he was a pastor. He had 3 churches, owned 2 gas stations. He also owned 40 acres. And then my grandmother working side by side, Alberta Curry, with my grandfather, with the 3 churches and the 2 gas stations. I was 8 years old, walking through a hallway in Oakland. She said, "There's something about your voice. I love hearing you speak." Now I'm on 29 podcast platforms and streaming on 4 TV platforms. I really do appreciate them, love them with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. My beautiful father, former United States Air Force fighter pilot, chief mechanic, always saying, develop your mind to its highest extent. Love my dad with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. My beautiful brother Todd with that bombastic voice, sound like thunder and lightning when Todd would speak. Always saying, go forward. A voracious leader. I love you, Todd, with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. My beautiful daughter Daisy, the most beautiful daughter in the history of the universe. College graduate, 2 degrees with honors, and 3.5 years from a major university. She set up the very first interview for Big C Sports Podcast back at Salem Media. It was the first time in the history of the United States of America that NFL Monday Night Football started broadcasting live on the Wall Street Business Network because of 2 black men in the crew. Daisy, you can be anything you want. I love you with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. Always trust God, Isaiah 54:17, that no weapon formed against you will prosper. My beautiful, handsome son, Malcolm, the most handsome son in the history of the universe. College student, very smart, erudite, a good man. Always trust God, Isaiah 54:17, that no weapon formed against you will prosper. Malcolm helped me save trees. I used to always get newspapers and look up stats for a Big C Sports Podcast. And one day Malcolm said, "Dad, why don't you just Google it?" And a light bulb went off. I've been Googling ever since. And then one day Malcolm said, "Dad, do you want to see Big C Sports on TV?" I said, "Sure." He said, "Pick up the remote, aim it at the TV, and say, 'Play Big C Sports.' You'll see your show come up." And that's before it was even on the air. Now streaming on 4 TV platforms: Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, and Amazon and Fire TV. Malcolm, I love you with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. You can be anything you want. Always trust God. And then Big C, with all that wealth and knowledge over the years, always saying you got to believe, you got to believe, you got to believe. Let's get ready to rumble. I love to say welcome to the show. As we nominated at Big C Sports Podcast. I have no scripts. That's all this Big C. I have no 3-way teleprompter. I have no producer in my ear. All I have is that pineal gland, that unconscious, that gift of nature. The old ancient thinkers used to say there's a gland in the brain called the pineal gland. Some people call it the third eye. And that's what I call on when I try to do my show. Not when I'm trying, when I do it. And I always ask God for God's favor. That's my story. I'm sticking with it. Well, as I always tell you, as my beautiful mother always says, that if you're going to drink, don't drive. If you're going to drive, don't drink, because mothers against drunk drivers are mad, and fathers against drunk drivers are mad. It's one of the easiest things not to do. You can call Uber, you can call Lyft, you can walk it off, you can sleep it off, but don't let some of your loves get behind the wheel of a car, start driving when they've been drinking. The life you save may be your own, or somebody you love, if that makes sense to you. My beautiful mother always says there's never ever an excuse for racism or domestic violence. If anybody's going through that crap, you need more leader in your life. Leader is an acronym for love is the answer. Nobody should have to put up with, I only slapped you because you made me mad. Call 911. I only kicked you because you made me mad. Call 911. I only choked you out because you made me mad. Don't put up with that crap. Call 911 and let them deal with it. That's my story, and I'm sticking with it. People change when the police show up. No one should have to put up with that crap. And you know it's true. Now, back by popular demand, back in the day, there's a man known by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He's known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He would always tell Ali, you float like a butterfly and you sting like a bee. Rumble, young man, rumble. He said, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Ali said, I'm so pretty, I can't possibly be beat. Every time I listen to Big C Sports, I want a champion like New York City Governor Kathy Hochul. Reparations now, reparations forever. And then I float like a butterfly and I sting like a bee. No one was greater than Muhammad Ali. Well, I always honor the President Abraham Lincoln who signed reparations, and we got to have the same courage now. I know you want the black vote. All good people, do the right thing. We got to champion reparations now, reparations forever. Come on, you cheer louder at the Kentucky Derby for a horse. You cheer louder for a horse. Let's champion reparations now, reparations forever. Don't let a horse cheer louder than you when you champion reparations. Say it with all your heart, mind, body, and soul. Because like Governor Kathy Hochul in New York City, she's a white lady champion for reparations. How about you? Reparations now, reparations forever. I thank you, I appreciate you, and I hope that you have a super fantastic day.